Hi, my name is Gemma Fleming. I'm here right now covering Warriors Cup's weigh-ins. The team really ran a tight ship. What I basically did was get a little bit of behind the scenes of what it goes into probably one of the biggest prep works for fights that no one ever sees. It's cutting the weight and making sure that you're ready for fight day. I had all the fighters come out here, do some face-offs, and we got some nice portraits. So stick around, take a look at the fights tomorrow. Should be a good card. One of the best pieces of advice I can give a fighter in regards to having the best fight day or best weigh-in photos is to make sure that they keep their posture really simple. Don't overthink it. Smiling is actually not the best thing sometimes, unless if you've got a great one. I personally look really terrible when I fake a smile. And chin up, especially in areas where you don't have great lighting, is key, just so things look really flattering overall. As a photographer, I find that I am mostly drawn to documentary photography. My commercial work is usually in the world of e-commerce and fashion editorials, but I moonlight mostly as a fight photographer. I feel really passionate about a lot of the things that these fighters go through, especially as a fighter myself. So for me, it's completely, I had a loss for words for really being able to have these moments where I can really see and look back on with those fighters in those moments when they're in the ring, when they're trying to grind out in training, some of those great wins and some of those really disappointing, desperate losses. Those are things that really draws me to fight photography, and it's one of those things that kind of keeps me in it, even though it's not really necessarily part of my commercial work. Documentary photography is not just about really capturing a moment as it's happening. A lot of it, you gotta have a really good style into it. I love really grainy, high contrast black and white work. That really kind of brings me back to a lot of stuff I learned in college. A really great understanding of color is also fantastic, and something that really can't be taught but sort of innate is great composition. I like being able to look at images and feel like I'm in the moment. So it could either, you're playing with an angle where there's a lot of people in front to create a lot of depth and foreground between the foreground and the background. Those images where I feel like you can sort of sense yourself being there, what the photographer was going through, is probably stylistically what makes good fight photography. And I feel like a lot of times the way that I treat the fight photography and my commercial work are sort of one and the same. Just in regards to like what I'm photographing, it might be different when it's someone in a really big ball gown versus someone who's lacing up in 12-ounce gloves. You might think that the context might be pretty contrasting, but there's a lot of similarities between the two. A couple of pieces of advice for people who are starting off in photography, especially in the fight world, is photograph your friends, photograph your training partners. Try not to put a lot of pressure on yourself. Sometimes if I go into a project with too much of a vision around it, it can kind of bottleneck and constrain some of the more spontaneous things that can happen. And the biggest thing too is don't be afraid to ask for access for things. I especially say this a lot to the female photographers who don't seem to really see much of each other within that field, but as I'm starting to connect with a lot more women, especially online, we're finding that there's a lot of us out there, so don't be shy. Feel free to make some room for you at the table, or in this case, figuratively, at the ringside. Thanks to Chris Tran, the entire promotion at Warriors Cup. A huge thanks also to my coach, Brett Lavacek, for having me on board for this. You can follow me on Instagram. My fighting profile is Gemma Fleming, and my commercial photography work, Gemma Fleming Photo. Thanks so much.